More and more Americans, as they get closer to retirement, are starting to hit the panic button and take their Social Security check early. And the reason behind this is likely because many people are worried about even getting a Social Security check in the future. As things stand right now, by 2035, which is only 10 years from now, if nothing is done to alter or fix the Social Security situation, people will only be receiving about 70% of the benefits they receive right now. So it's almost a guarantee that in 10 years from now, whatever you're receiving right now is going to go down by about 30%. At the same time, the cost of living and inflation goes through the roof. So people are like, you know what? Maybe I should just take it right now and start taking some of that money now, because if you wait, the extra 4, 5, 6 years until you hit full retirement age, then that can be a big disadvantage, knowing that the system is bankrupt. Here's a woman right here who plans to wait until she was 67 and take her full retirement benefits when she actually reached the full retirement age in order to get the full benefit. But around the end of January this year, she started getting more and more worried about it, and she decided to start taking it now and take it early and at least start getting some money today while there's still some money to be gotten. So she's 65 years old. She's going to receive her first check in June of $1,633, which is only $130 less each month than if she would have waited 2 years. Like, honestly, I think it was worth it. I think it was the right decision to take it early. $130 a month is not a whole lot of money, guys. Like, yeah, maybe it makes a difference of being able to pay one of your bills or not, but if you're that hard up for cash, then your problems are bigger than that. No matter what age you are, if $130 a month is going to make or break your budget, then you have big financial problems that started long before should I take my Social Security check early or not. But an official at the Social Security Administration said in April that there has been a large surge since January of people taking their Social Security benefits early. And in case you don't know, you can start receiving Social Security as early as age 62, but you're not entitled to full benefits until age 67. And if you start taking it early at 62, then your benefits are about 30% lower than if you waited to full retirement age. So waiting that 5 extra years to get 30% more is highly going to depend on your financial situation and how well you plan for retirement. Right now, according to the Social Security Administration, about 30% of applicants are applying at age 62, and about 32% claim benefits after age 62, but before full retirement age. And it turns out only 10% of people actually maximize their Social Security payouts and wait to claim their benefits until age 70. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't want to admit that Social Security is essentially bankrupt as it stands right now, but yet the behavior behind the scenes shows that people are worried how bankrupt it is and are deciding to take the money now. Now, it could also mean that people are so hard up for cash because of how hard the economy is, they just need the extra money today in order to supplement their retirement savings, if any, and are willing to forego the extra they might get in the future. But either way, it shows that the current state of affairs and the current economy is not doing too well. Now, another big problem with our economy is inflation, and right now the bond market is screaming it. In fact, this week we saw a major move with bond prices, and it caused the stock market to take a dip as well. Just on Thursday this week, the 30-year bond yields reached the largest yield amount since 2007. Take a look at this chart here. You can see that clearly we have not had 30-year treasury yields at over 5% like this since April of 2007. Well, what was happening back then? Oh yeah, that's right. We were on the brink of a major recession, the largest one that we've had in the past few decades. And bond investors are worried about all sorts of problems right now. One of them is that out of control U.S. borrowing and spending that we're doing, seeing the deficit climb higher and higher. Congress just passed President Trump's tax bill on Thursday, which is going to increase the government debt by trillions of dollars over the next decade, which is one of the reasons that our country lost its AAA rating last week. And you see, this is the kind of thing I was saying even before Trump got elected. Like, people think, oh, he's going to come in and save the day. Everybody's, tired of the Bidenflation. Well, now we got Trumpflation. So either way, we're screwed, right? Doesn't really matter who's creating the inflation, because as long as the deficit continues to increase, our problems continue to get worse in this country. And I'm not saying this to be political. I'm just saying it because it's the truth. So this also means that the Fed is likely to keep interest rates higher for longer. And this higher interest creates this doom loop for the government where they have to borrow even more in order to continue paying for things, particularly the debt service. And politicians are basically unwilling to make big enough spending cuts or tax increases to control the deficit. And I think they should always be looking at spending cuts and forget about increasing taxes. We pay high enough taxes in this country. I saw a great comment the other day that I want to address here that went something like this. When I was talking about, maybe we should cut all these government entitlement programs like Social Security, welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, all this stuff in order to get our spending under control, and the military too, by the way. Nothing should be immune. In order to get our spending in line with reality so we don't have these deficits and we can start healing as a nation. One person said, well, what's the point in having all this money and spending all this money if we're not going to spend it to help our own citizens? Meaning that why would we want to get rid of Social Security and Medicare and all this stuff? Because we spend billions of dollars helping other nations with all kinds of things like we've been doing with Ukraine and Israel, stuff like that, right? Which I totally agree, okay? Let me just put that out there. I agree that that's what we should do. If we're going to spend the money, we should spend it on our own citizens, not the rest of the world. The problem, of course, is that since we don't do that, they want to continue increasing our taxes, continue blowing up the deficit, so we can keep handing out more money to everybody all over the world and U.S. citizens. So yes, I agree, if we're going to collect taxes and we're going to spend money, it should be spent on us. And then if there's anything left over for charitable donation, then yeah, we can help other nations as well. But we should be looking at the home front first. But since that's not what we do, and it's not what we've done for many decades now, it has led to this situation where the U.S. is fundamentally bankrupt. But here's the other thing that these treasury yields going up means. Nobody wants to own a 30-year treasury at a 5% interest rate in this current inflation environment. That's a guaranteed loss right there at this point. If you were to hold that treasury to maturity, which I know most people don't do that, but if you were to do that, you're setting yourself up for massive losses over 30 years. And bond investors know that, and that's why the interest rates for these bonds have to continue to go up, because it's the only way to get people to buy them. Who in their right mind would want to put money away for 30 years guaranteeing a loss? Nobody. Nobody wants to do that. And another thing that happened to influence the bond prices going up is the ICE US dollar index ended 0.6% down, and it failed to attract buyers despite much higher long-dated treasury yields. So investors in general are worried about the weakening dollar and the out-of-control spending and inflation we have in this country, and rightfully so. I'm worried about it too. Where is this going to end us up in the next 20 years? And now that we just got a new administration elected and we see that the deficit continues to go up and not down, this is proof that no matter who gets elected in the future, guys, they're going to continue to do the same thing. I would be completely shocked if anybody focuses on the future of actually cutting spending and cutting expenses. Because so far, no president is willing to do it. No administration wants to tell their constituents, oh no, you can't have that, or we can't afford that anymore. But yet Americans want to sit here and complain about how broke they are and how expensive everything is, but nobody wants to give up any of their entitlement programs. And then you can say, well, Michael, people need entitlement programs because of how expensive everything is. No, they need entitlement programs because the government has made things so unaffordable and so expensive with their out-of-control inflationary policy. That's why people need entitlement programs. And I want to thank Tom for sending this over to me. He sent me over the latest report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing the real earnings summary. And this is something that you should really pay attention to, because this shows you just how much money people are actually earning seasonally adjusted, and it's not looking good. Real average weekly earnings decreased 0.1% over the month due to no change in the real average hourly earnings combined with no change in the average work week. And then from April 2024 to April 2025, real average hourly earnings increased 1.4% when seasonally adjusted. So think about that, guys. The CPI right now is sitting at 2.3%, which is a huge lie, and people's earnings went up 1.4% over the past year, according to the BLS. That means people are losing at least 1% due to inflation, but actually way more because the inflation numbers are a lot higher than what's actually reported. And this is yet another reason why we see these bond yields continue to rise, because more and more people are waking up to the fact that, yeah, this is going to be a big problem for quite some time, and maybe it's never going to get resolved. You know, I don't know if it will or not. Since nobody seems to want to cut spending and they want to continue blowing up the deficit, how is inflation going to get better? Because we need more money to pay for all of these things, right? Which means an eventual increase in the money supply, which means an increase in inflation. You don't have to look any further than the car market either to see a real-world example of how all this inflation is screwing everybody's life up. Now, people screw up their own life by deciding to finance a brand new car, but the point remains the same, that because everything continues to get more and more expensive, people have to borrow more and more to continue to pay for it, just like the government is doing, which is unsustainable and eventually leads to bankruptcies, repossessions, and bad credit scores. Sound familiar? In March of this year, sales for Honda jumped 13% in the US, and it went up 10% for Nissan. And if that were to be annualized, that would lead to about 17.8 million cars sold in 2025, whereas last year it was 16 million new cars. So a huge jump. And the reason for that is people were rushing to buy brand new cars due to the tariffs, okay? And you can see by taking a look at this chart just how much car payments have climbed since 2020. You know, for a used car, people used to pay about $400 a month. Now it's like $550 a month. Before the pandemic, people were paying about $550 for a brand new car. Now it's $750. And all this extra debt leads to a rise in delinquencies. In fact, delinquencies on auto loans have been on the rise so much that there were 2.7 million auto repossessions in 2024, which was double what we saw in 2021. Double, guys. If that doesn't scream people are going broke, I don't know what does. But really what it screams to me is that people are continuously biting off more than they can chew in order to keep up. Nobody actually needs to buy a brand new car. You can buy a $5,000 car for cash that runs. So half of this has to do with status and ego and wanting to appear cool and appear like you're doing well to your friends, families, and neighbors. And a lot of things that a lot of these people who are buying brand new cars are doing is they're extending out these auto loans from already a lengthy 5 years to now 7 years. 7 years is becoming the go-to auto loan period for brand new car owners right now. And this is already leading to a situation where about 25% of trade-ins are now worth less than what's owed on the loan, which is called negative equity. And just take a look at this chart here that shows you just how much delinquencies, particularly for subprime auto loans, have been on the rise since 2020. In fact, they were already on the rise before the pandemic and then took a huge nosedive and are now even higher than the levels they were before the pandemic. And with payments this high of $750, $1,000 a month for a brand new car, any type of little hiccup that happens in your life, any type of financial problem that crops up, it can easily put you behind on making this payment and lead to a repossession situation. Now, a delinquency doesn't always lead to a repossession because people will often prioritize their auto loan over other types of debt in order to make sure they don't get their car repossessed. And a lot of people need that transportation to get to their job. So losing your car can also mean losing your job in many cases. But the American Recovery Association, which is the association for the repo man, said that they're gearing up for a big year in repo work for 2025. Repossessions are definitely on a trajectory up, he says, citing the increased number of Americans already delinquent on their loans. The cost to survive is skyrocketing, and the consumer is going to feel it. So anybody who is smart enough to take out an auto loan for $1,000 a month right now starts feeling the increased cost of living, probably going to regret that decision. And even if you don't, right? Even if, say, you continue to pay your bill and you don't fall behind on your auto loan, in 5 years from now, say you want to get a new car, but you took out a 7-year loan, which means you still got 2 years left of payments, you're probably going to be one of those people who are in a negative equity situation because you've already depleted enough of that vehicle's value over 5 years where you likely now owe more on it than it's actually worth. So that's the other problem with taking out these longer and longer auto loans, is it makes you more vulnerable to being in a negative equity situation at some point down the road. So people want the solutions to these problems. Okay, I'll give you the solutions. Well, if you're worried about taking your Social Security early because you're worried you're not going to get it, probably should save enough money where you don't have to worry about Social Security before you retire. There's a solution to the problem. You're worried about having a car you can afford or having negative equity on your car loan? Don't take out a 7-year car loan. Don't buy a brand new car if you can't afford to pay cash for it. There are real world solutions to these problems. Like, a lot of the problems I talk about on this channel are all self-induced. All these problems are created by our government. All these problems are created by people with irresponsible and poor spending and saving habits. All these things can be avoided for almost everybody, guys. I understand that people fall on hard times and sometimes things just happen. People fall on some bad luck. That does happen. But it doesn't have to be this hard. People make it this hard through a series of poor decisions. And one last thing I want to mention here, which I found surprising considering Walmart and Costco are the two nationwide retailers that are crushing it right now and aren't seeing any slowdown in their sales or activity. Well, they just announced that they're laying off 1,500 of their corporate workers. Walmart says that they're reshaping some teams on our global tech and Walmart US organizations where we have identified opportunities to remove layers and complexity, speed up decision making, and help associates innovate rapidly. Technology is evolving at an unprecedented pace, and these moves allow it to accelerate and deliver and adapt to the changing environment around us. So basically, you're in the way, you're useless, you're taking up too much time, energy, and resources from this company, you're gone. And I wanted to bring up this layoff notice, not only because it's quite big from Walmart, and also a lot of high-paying positions are going to be eliminated, which means breadwinners of households that likely earn over 6 figures a year, they're going to be losing their jobs. But it also highlights that even when a company is doing well in a bad economy, it's still not bulletproof. There are still susceptibilities to layoffs and people losing jobs, even when it looks like the company's doing good. And I think this serves as a great reminder to just never get too comfortable, particularly when you're working a job. If you have your own business, I guess you still can't get too comfortable because things can always change on a dime for you as well. But at least you have more control over what's happening. You can increase your marketing efforts, you can lower your expenses and increase your profits. There's different things you can do as a business owner to help mitigate a bad economy, whereas when you work a job, you're just at the mercy of the higher ups. So everybody should be on their toes right now and just be ready. Have that emergency fund saved up, guys. Have that 6 months emergency fund ready to go right now, because you never know if it's going to come in handy. People who work at Walmart corporate probably never thought they'd be losing their jobs right now, considering Walmart is doing great in a pretty bad economy. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.